Hey guys, Chickadee Maine, aka DeBud.com, with a video surf forecast update. This surf forecast update brought to you by North Beach Fish Camp. Looking for some of the freshest seafood in town? Visit North Beach Fish Camp, located at the end of Atlantic Boulevard in Neptune Beach, Florida. Here's this morning's look at 95L Invest out here near the central Atlantic. And as you can see this morning, the system continues to move off towards the west, forecast to move off towards the west-northwest over the next 72 hours towards the island of Hispaniola. There is no closed circulation with it this morning. However, 95L has become a little bit better organized in the overnight. It's currently a front-loaded system, meaning that all of the convection is out in front of the area of what looks to be circulation in here, and you can see that right in here. A lot of times some of these systems can develop a closed low, and you can actually see it in the satellite loops. On one side you can see the circulation clearly at the surface, and then on the other side it's just got all of the convection. So this is the beginning of what looks to be a well-organized system. It's got a couple of hurdles that it needs to get through before we can start to get concerned. So we're going to be tracking this over the next several days. So here's what the forecast looks like with 95L Invest over the next 72 hours. It's going to continue to move off towards the west-northwest and get in here towards the islands and south of Puerto Rico on what looks to be Tuesday and Wednesday. There's favorable wind shear in here over the next 24 to 48 hours, and we could see some further development. However, once this gets towards the island of Hispaniola, current wind shear is running about 40 knots up in here. So unless that changes by the time it gets there to Tuesday or Wednesday, it may have some difficulty and we could see it start to degrade. Now, the island of Hispaniola also is going to play a factor in this, because as this moves off towards the west-northwest, it should become a little bit better organized. Forecast intensity models are calling for this to be a tropical storm within the next 48 to 72 hours. So that puts that in the time frame of it being just south of Puerto Rico. The other hurdle that this is going to face is the island of Hispaniola itself. And on the current forecast track, or what the models are suggesting, if this thing is a tropical storm here Tuesday or Wednesday just south of Puerto Rico and is continuing on this type of track through here, the high mountainous terrains over the island of Hispaniola has been known historically to disrupt storms and their circulation centers. So the rule of thumb is, on the current forecast track, you typically need to wait to see what happens once the system gets past Hispaniola. Now, the official forecast coming out of the Tropical Atlantic Forecast Branch is for this system to continue to move off towards the west now and towards Jamaica in here. So we'll have to just wait and see. Don't want to get all the hype, but in the extended runs, the forecast models are showing this to be a southeast U.S. coast threat. Okay, so here's a look at the CMC. That's the Canadian model, and need to give you a disclaimer on the Canadian model right up front. The Canadian model is well known within the forecast community to go to the extreme when it wants to forecast these storms. So we don't look at the CMC necessarily for intensity, but we look for track and where they think that the system is going. Now, the CMC historically has not been one of the reliable models. However, there was one hurricane season, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, that the CMC out forecast everyone for the entire season. So it's another reason why we pay attention to it. So here's what this looks like. And when we're talking about getting near the island of Hispaniola, now the one thing that I would like to note here is, again, the Tropical Forecast Branch is showing this system 72 hours from now being in here just south of the eastern tip of Cuba. So this could take a little bit more southerly track, and if it stays well enough to the south of Hispaniola, it gives it the opportunity to stay organized as long as wind shear doesn't knock it down. But here's what it looks like on Thursday, and as we get into Friday, you can see the island of Cuba kind of disrupts it a little bit, but when it pops out on the other side, folks, we could be into some trouble here. When it pops on the other side come Friday late, you can see some deepening of the system and some regaining of its original organization. And this is forecast by the Canadian model to move up the Florida East Coast and be just east of Northeast Florida on Sunday. Now, again, folks, this is a long ways out. Don't want to start any hype. There's going to be multiple more forecast model runs, so you'll just have to stay tuned for the forecast.